The conference room inside Naval Special Warfare Command buzzed with quiet anticipation. The air smelled faintly of coffee, sweat, and the cold metal tongue that always clung to the walls of SEAL facilities. Rows of operators sat in straight-backed chairs, all in uniform, their expressions fixed but eyes alert. The mission briefing was scheduled to begin in 5 minutes. At the far end of the table sat Evan Cole, a man most of the team knew only by his call sign, Reaper Zero. He wasn't tall or particularly broad, but there was something in the way he carried himself still, focused like a coiled spring that never quite released. His presence demanded quiet. Cole never liked attention, and yet he always drew it. The new recruits whispered about him in the barracks. Some said he'd fought his way out of an ambush alone. Others said he was the reason a whole village in Kandahar no longer existed. Nobody knew the full story. Nobody ever asked. The door opened sharply, and the room straightened. Admiral James Hensley entered, his white uniform crisp and his tone brisk. He had the kind of authority that came from decades of service and the certainty that nothing could surprise him anymore. "Morning, gentlemen," the Admiral began, walking down the row of SEALs. "Heard this unit's the sharpest in the division. Let's see if that's true." The men nodded. Hensley moved toward the far side of the table, scanning name tags and patches as he went. Then his eyes landed on the one that broke his rhythm, Reaper Zero, stitched in clean black across a plate carrier resting on the table in front of Cole. He raised an eyebrow, smirking. "Reaper Zero, huh? Sounds like something out of a video game." A few quiet chuckles echoed through the room. Even the Admiral smiled, clearly pleased with himself. "What's that supposed to mean, son? You run out of normal names, so you went for scary?" The room went still. Cole didn't move. His gray eyes stayed locked on the projector screen ahead, unblinking. He didn't smirk, didn't frown, just silence. The kind that pressed down on the air. Across the table, Chief Warrant Officer Blake Harris, Cole's team leader, cleared his throat. "Sir," he said carefully, it's not a name he chose." Hensley turned to him, still half smiling. "Oh? So it's one of those earned things, is it?" Harris didn't answer. Neither did anyone else. The Admiral looked around, suddenly realizing every man in the room had dropped their gaze. The laughter that had flickered a moment ago died out like a snuffed match. He studied Cole again. "Reaper Zero," he repeated, quieter this time. "Interesting." Cole finally turned his head, just slightly. "Permission to speak freely, sir?" "Granted." Cole's voice was even, calm, almost too calm. "It's just a call sign, sir. Doesn't mean much anymore." But his tone said otherwise. Hensley watched him for a long second, and shrugged and turned toward the briefing officer. "All right then, let's get started." The projector flickered to life, displaying satellite images of desert terrain, dusty ridgelines, burnt-out vehicles, and red-circled coordinates. The mission briefing began, words filling the silence that had followed the exchange. But the Admiral couldn't focus. He kept glancing back at the quiet operator sitting at the end of the table. Reaper Zero. He'd heard that name before years ago, during a classified after-action report. A story about a rescue mission gone sideways in southern Afghanistan. A lone SEAL cut off from command, presumed Kyo, who somehow fought his way through 24 insurgents to save a pair of captured Marines. But that couldn't be him, could it? The man in the report was supposed to have been reassigned, maybe even retired. The footage, Hensley remembered, had been sealed under top-secret, need-to-know only. He'd seen only fragments, grainy drone images of a single figure moving through smoke and tracer fire like a phantom. The operator on that feed had no backup. No comms, no support. Yet he'd walked out alive. And his drone tag had read Reaper Zero. The Admiral's heart ticked faster. He shifted in his seat, his earlier smirk long gone. As the briefing continued, Cole finally spoke, his tone clipped and professional. "Sir, these coordinates are close to the river bend. The terrain's open visibility's high. I recommend repositioning the entry point north by half a click." The Admiral looked at him, surprised by the calm authority in his voice. The man wasn't asking for permission. He was speaking like someone who'd already fought there. The mission planner nodded. "Good point. We'll update the map." When the briefing ended, the Admiral remained seated as the SEALs stood to leave. He watched as Cole quietly collected his notes, slid them into a folder, and pushed back his chair. "Lieutenant Cole," Hensley said. Cole paused, standing straight. "Sir?" "Stay a moment." The others exited quickly, giving them space. The door shut behind them, and the two men were left alone in the fluorescent silence. Hensley folded his hands. "I made a joke earlier about your call sign." "Yes, sir." "Didn't mean any disrespect. None taken, sir." The Admiral studied his face-steady eyes, a faint scar on his temple, posture perfect. There was no ego, no defensiveness, just a quiet patience that came from years of seeing too much. Hensley leaned forward. "Tell me something, son. That footage from Kandahar, was that you?" Cole didn't move for a long time. The hum of the overhead lights filled the pause. Finally, he spoke. "Sir, I don't talk about that day." The Admiral nodded slowly. "That's answer enough." Cole turned to leave, but Hensley called after him. "Lieutenant." "Reaper Zero, was it?" "For what it's worth, I think the name fits." Cole stopped at the door. "Respectfully, sir, I'd rather it didn't." Then he walked out, leaving the Admiral alone, staring at the empty chair where a legend had just been sitting. As the echo of his boots faded down the hallway, the Admiral pulled out his phone and quietly texted his aide, "Get me the Kandahar file. Level 7 clearance, now." He sat there for a long time, the quiet pressing against him. The memory of his own laughter from just 20 minutes earlier felt like a stain he couldn't wipe away. He'd seen many soldiers come and go brave, reckless, broken. But Reaper Zero, there was something different. Something that unsettled even a man who'd spent 30 years in the Navy. Outside, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows through the window blinds. And in one of those shadows, the Admiral could almost see it, a figure from the drone footage, walking through fire and smoke, unshakable, unstoppable. The Reaper. Not a nickname, not a legend. A man who carried death, but never for glory only, for the ones who couldn't carry it themselves. And for the first time in a long while, Admiral James Hensley felt the weight of respect heavy in his chest. He whispered to the empty room, "Damn, I should have known better than to laugh." 3 years before the Admiral's joke, the sun was a white-hot disk over Kandahar province, Afghanistan. The air shimmered with heat, carrying the scent of sand, diesel, and something metallic, the taste of danger that every SEAL team knew too well. Lieutenant Evan Cole crouched behind a crumbled wall, scanning the horizon through his rifle scope. His radio crackled softly in his ear. "Reaper 1 to 0, status?" "0 in position," Cole replied quietly. His voice was calm, steady, always steady. Eyes on target building. 2 guards, both armed. The operation had been labeled routine, a simple extraction mission. 2 U.S. Marines had been captured during a convoy ambush 48 hours earlier. Intelligence placed them in a small compound at the edge of a farming village. The mission, in and out before dawn. But nothing in Afghanistan ever stayed routine. Cole had been chosen to lead the assault. At 31, he was already considered one of the most composed operators in the field, the kind of man who could make life or death calls without flinching. He motioned to his team, 5 men moving like ghosts in the dark. They slipped closer to the compound walls, sand crunching softly under their boots. Every motion was practiced, precise, until the night shattered. A shout erupted from the watchtower. A spotlight flared. Then came the first bullet. Contact! North wall! Someone yelled. In seconds, gunfire roared across the night. Tracer rounds sliced through the darkness, sparking against metal. Cole ducked low, returning fire in controlled bursts. Delta, cover the flank. Raven, breach the south door. But then came the words no soldier ever wants to hear. Reaper 0, this is command. We've got a drone malfunction. We're blind. Repeat, blind. Cole swore under his breath. Their air support was gone. He looked around. Half his team pinned, 1 man hit in the leg. The compound had erupted with enemies, pouring from every direction. Abort? Asked Harris over comms. Cole didn't hesitate. Negative. We're not leaving those Marines. He switched channels. Command, we're proceeding. Tell air assets to hold. Static. Then silence. The line was dead. Cole took a deep breath, eyes narrowing. All right, he muttered, more to himself than anyone. We do this the hard way. They pressed forward through a storm of bullets. Every move felt endless. A sprint, a roll, a reload, another breath. They breached the compound's outer wall, and the smell of smoke and cordite filled the air. Inside, they found 1 Marine, barely conscious, bleeding, but alive. Where's the second? Cole demanded. The wounded Marine coughed weakly. North room. Basement. Cole turned to Harris. Get him out. Now. What about you? I'll get the other. Cole, go. And with that, Evan Cole disappeared into the smoke. The gunfire intensified. Bullets tore chunks from the mud walls around him. He moved like a shadow, reloading on instinct, cutting corners with the precision of a man who had done this too many times to count. He reached the basement door, reinforced wood, locked. He kicked once, twice. On the third strike, it splintered inward. Inside, a terrified Marine sat tied to a chair, eyes wide. Behind him, 2 insurgents turned, surprised. Cole fired twice. Both dropped. He knelt, cutting the Marine's bindings. You're safe. Move. But when he turned back toward the door, he saw movement through the smoke, a flood of enemies converging on the compound. There were too many. Cole radioed in, voice clipped. Reaper 1, extraction compromised. I'm staying behind to cover. Negative. You'll be cut off. Already am. He switched to the secondary channel, whispered, Get my team home. The last thing he heard before switching comes off was Harris shouting his name. Then silence. He reloaded. 1 mag left. Then another he found on a fallen body. He could hear them coming, boots, shouts, gunfire closing in. He positioned himself near the doorway, breathing slowly. For the next 40 minutes, the fight became a blur of sound and instinct. He moved through the compound methodically, using the smoke and shadows as allies. His rifle barked again and again. Every round found a mark. Every second stretched into an eternity. By dawn, the compound was quiet. Smoke drifted through broken windows. The ground was littered with spent casings and bodies. Cole's uniform was torn and streaked with soot. He had taken a grazing shot to his shoulder, but he was still standing. He stepped outside, blinking against the harsh sunlight. The world felt eerily calm now, only the distant thrum of helicopter blades breaking the silence. Reaper 0, this is Eagle Command. A voice finally crackled in his ear. We have visual. Holy sir, are you alone? Cole took a deep breath. Affirmative. Mission complete. 2 hostages secure. There was a pause on the other end, disbelief mixed with awe. Copy that. Reaper 0. We're sending evac. The drone feed that recorded those final moments captured something haunting. One man walking through the rising smoke, rifle slung over his shoulder, the sun at his back. No squad, no backup, just him. When Cole returned to base, there were no cheers. Just stares. Command debriefed him for hours, trying to understand how he survived. They labeled the footage top secret and buried it under classified archives. Officially, the mission was successful with heavy engagement. Unofficially, it became legend. That night, one of the drone operators, a young tech specialist named Mark Avery, reviewed the footage before archiving it. He typed the mission tag name into the system. Reaper 0. 0 survivors among the enemy. 0 teammates lost. 0 hesitation. He paused, staring at the grainy image of Cole walking through smoke. There was something almost supernatural about it, like death himself had walked through that battlefield, sparing only those he came to save. He hit save. From that day on, the name spread quietly through special operations circles. Operators whispered it in bars, in base camps, in the backs of transport planes. Nobody said it to Cole's face, but everyone knew. The man who came back from the dead. The soldier who fought alone. The Reaper. Evan Cole hated the name. It reminded him of every scream, every second of that endless night. But he never corrected anyone. Some burdens, he figured, weren't meant to be set down. And when he walked past new recruits in the training yard, months later, and they straightened up a little taller, or whispered his call sign with that mix of fear and admiration, he said nothing. He just nodded once, quietly. Because legends don't need to speak. They just keep moving. Weeks had passed since the Kandahar mission, yet the memory of that night clung to Evan Cole like a shadow. He returned to base quietly, tending to equipment, checking weapons, and moving through the barracks as if he belonged nowhere in particular. The other SEALs respected him, yes, but most gave him space. Nobody wanted to pry. They already knew enough to be careful. What nobody knew, at least not officially, was the footage. The drone had recorded the mission in its entirety. The grainy black and white video captured the chaos, the smoke, and the terrifying precision of a single man moving through impossible odds. In the feed, a lone operator cut through insurgents with surgical efficiency. The footage showed him crouching behind walls, peering around corners, every breath calculated, every movement purposeful. It was almost unreal, like watching a phantom haunt a battlefield. The video was marked top secret, restricted to only the highest clearances. Command had archived it in a secure room, but whispers about the mission spread like wildfire among those cleared to know. Names weren't used, only the call sign. Reaper 0. At first, the story seemed like myth. Operators at the base speculated. Maybe it was luck, maybe a stroke of skill, or maybe someone had exaggerated. But for those who had seen the footage, or even fragments of it, there was no doubt. Whoever had walked through Kandahar that night had changed the rules. One evening, Mark Avery, the drone tech who had monitored the mission, found himself staring at the footage again in the dimly lit server room. He leaned forward, the glow of the monitor reflecting in his eyes. A sound of distant chatter from the barracks outside was muffled through the thick walls. He replayed the segment where Cole's rifle cracked sharply through the air, and insurgents fell, one by one. Avery's fingers hovered over the keyboard, unwilling to scroll through more than a few seconds at a time. Each frame carried a weight, a precision, a silence that was almost unbearable. Somewhere in the middle of the footage, Cole moved with such fluidity, it was like watching a shadow glide through fire. There was no hesitation, no fear. Just determination. The young tech felt a chill run down his spine. Who is this guy? He whispered to himself. He's not human. Avery typed a note into the classified log. Reaper 0. Mission complete. No casualties among hostiles? Impossible. He hit save, not realizing how prophetic that label would become. Meanwhile, Cole himself never watched the footage. He refused. He didn't need reminders. Every sound, every movement, every glance of enemy eyes he had faced was etched into his memory. Watching it on a screen, even grainy and distant, would only pull him back into that night. He preferred to leave it buried in code and security clearance. Back in the Pentagon, Admiral Hensley, meanwhile, had been hearing the whispers. The name Reaper 0 floated in classified briefings, in hushed tones from intelligence officers, and from the occasional smirk of a SEAL officer returning from deployment. He dismissed it at first, thinking it was typical military legend building, the kind that inflated stories for morale or fear. But curiosity gnawed at him. One late night, Hensley found himself in the secure viewing room, flanked by a tech officer with clearance enough to show him only what was necessary. The lights dimmed, and the first frames of the Kandahar footage flickered on the screen. The Admiral leaned forward immediately. Grainy, black-and-white footage, but unmistakable. A lone figure, moving through smoke, crouched, precise, lethal. He didn't panic. He didn't hesitate. Each insurgent that appeared was neutralized almost casually, yet with perfect accuracy. Hensley felt his heart rate accelerate. He had seen countless operations, watched soldiers fight under impossible conditions, and yet he had never witnessed such raw, unshakable competence. The man on the screen wasn't just brave. He was methodical, almost surgical in his actions. The feed switched to the moment Cole retrieved the Marines. One man slumped in the shadows, bleeding. Cole approached, cutting bindings, motioning for him to follow. Behind him, enemies swarmed. He turned, firing precisely, guiding the rescued Marine with calm authority. Hensley's jaw tightened. The man had been alone, with no air support, no backup, yet had saved 2 Americans against overwhelming odds. The footage showed every detail, every risk, every decision. Hensley knew in that instant, this was not luck. This was expertise honed to perfection, tested under fire, and it was terrifying in its efficiency. The room was silent, except for the whir of the projector and the muted breathing of the Admiral. He had joked about Reaper 0's call sign before, dismissing it as dramatics, a nickname for someone trying too hard to be feared. Now, seeing the footage, the humor drained instantly. Hensley leaned back, rubbing his face. "So that's him," he whispered. "That's the man." He understood why the SEALs avoided his gaze, why the other operators treated the name with reverence. Reaper 0 wasn't just a soldier. He was a force, a shadow moving through life and death, untouchable, unstoppable. Back at the base, Cole sat quietly in his quarters, cleaning his rifle. He had no idea the Admiral was watching, analyzing, realizing the weight of what had been done. Cole didn't need recognition, didn't want it. The mission had been successful because lives depended on it, not for medals or fame. But the awareness that those at the highest levels now understood who he was added another layer of complexity he didn't enjoy. The drone footage had become legend before anyone outside of classified channels could even know it existed. Soldiers spoke in whispers. Intelligence analysts checked files obsessively. Everyone in the loop knew the story. No one outside could even imagine the depth of the chaos Cole had faced. Mark Avery, the drone tech, watched the feed one last time before shutting it down. The log reads simply, Reaper 0, impossible mission, executed perfectly, survivor. He leaned back in his chair, exhausted, knowing he had just witnessed something beyond comprehension. And in the distance, thousands of miles away, the man himself didn't even glance at the screen. Evan Cole didn't need validation. He had lived the mission, faced the enemies, and done his duty. That was enough. Yet unknowingly, the story was already spreading quietly, methodically, like the man it celebrated. Those who knew it whispered his name in reverence, passed it along in briefings, and shared it with those who would understand. Reaper Zero. It was more than a call sign now. It was a legend. A shadow that moved through chaos, untouched, precise, and deadly. A name that even the Admiral, a man who had faced decades of warfare, would soon learn to respect with a mixture of awe and fear. The footage would remain classified, but its ripple effects had begun. The world of the SEALs had already shifted. And for the first time, Evan Cole's past, the mission, the fight, the impossible rescue, was reaching the ears of the highest-ranking officer in the Navy. For Reaper Zero, nothing had changed. For everyone else, everything had. The next morning, Admiral James Hensley sat alone in his office at Naval Special Warfare Command, staring at a secure tablet on his desk. The grainy drone footage of Kandahar replayed in his mind, each frame etched into his thoughts. He had watched it late the previous night in the secure viewing room, yet he couldn't shake the image of Reaper Zero moving through smoke, untouched by the chaos around him. Every step, every shot, every decision had been flawless. And the more he thought about it, the more the joke he had made in the briefing room replayed like a mark against his own judgment. Hensley had always been confident. 3 decades in the Navy, countless operations, medals, commendations. He had faced more combat than most men could imagine. But as he leaned back in his leather chair, rubbing his temples, a rare sense of unease crept in. He didn't just survive Kandahar, he dominated it. A knock at the door startled him. "Admiral, you requested clearance for Level 7 files?" asked a junior officer, stepping in cautiously. Hensley nodded without looking up. "Bring them. All of them. Now." The officer wheeled in a mobile secure console, connected it to the tablet, and began uploading the files. Hensley didn't speak. His mind was already elsewhere, imagining the night in Kandahar, imagining himself in that compound, knowing full well he would have faltered where Reaper Zero had excelled. Minutes passed. Finally, the officer looked at him. "Sir, you're about to see something extraordinary." Hensley clicked on the first file. The footage began to play, the grainy night vision images of the compound, insurgents moving through the smoke. Cole crouched behind a broken wall, scanning, calculating, precise. Every operator in the video was executing flawless tactics, except only one man truly mattered, the shadow moving through the chaos like a ghost, killing only what needed to be eliminated, protecting every life he could. Hensley's breath caught. He leaned closer to the screen. He had seen heroism before. He had seen courage, strategy, and brute force. But he had never seen something like this. Cole was calm, patient, unflinching. He moved with purpose and clarity that made every decision, every shot, feel inevitable. The chaos that surrounded him seemed almost irrelevant. It bent to his will. The Admiral's fingers hovered over the console, but he couldn't stop watching. There was no exaggeration, no cinematic flair, just the raw, unfiltered reality of a man who refused to fail. A sudden realization hit him. The call sign wasn't just a name. It wasn't bravado. It was a warning. He leaned back, rubbing his face. "Damn it," he muttered under his breath. I laughed. I fucking laughed. Hensley had joked about Reaper Zero in the briefing room hours earlier, not knowing the weight behind the name. And now, after seeing the classified footage, he felt a rare, deep respect and a sting of guilt. He picked up the secure phone, and dialed the base. "Get me Lieutenant Evan Cole, now." An hour later, Cole walked into the Admiral's office, calm and composed as always. Hensley looked at him, studying the man who had turned a chaotic battlefield into a precise, calculated mission. He remembered the joke, the smirk, the laughter from the previous briefing. Now it all felt absurd. "Lieutenant Cole," Hensley began, his voice steady but carrying an edge of gravity. I have to apologize for the other day." Cole tilted his head slightly, eyes neutral. "Sir?" The Admiral exhaled slowly. "I made a joke about your call sign. About Reaper Zero. I didn't know. I didn't know what it truly meant." Cole's expression didn't change. He simply nodded. "Sir, it's fine. I understand humor is part of command." "No," Hensley said, leaning forward. "It's not fine. I need you to understand, I know now. I saw the footage." Cole remained silent, giving nothing away. "The Kandahar mission," Hensley continued, his voice low, reverent. "The one everyone thought was. Well, we thought it was classified disaster reports. I watched it last night. And Lieutenant, I don't know how you did it. No backup, no support. 2 Marines, dozens of enemies, and you walked out alive. Entirely alone. Calm. Efficient. You didn't just survive. You dominated." Cole finally spoke, his voice quiet but firm. "Sir, I did what needed to be done. That's all. No one survives unscathed. No one executes perfectly. I was lucky or trained well enough not to make the wrong choice." Hensley shook his head, exhaling heavily. "It's not luck. It's more than training. It's discipline, courage, focus. I've never seen anything like it." The silence between them was heavy, but Cole didn't flinch. Hensley leaned back, trying to digest what he had just witnessed. He had led men into impossible missions, witnessed incredible feats, and even faced his own mortality countless times. Yet, here was a man whose quiet precision left even a decorated admiral humbled. "Lieutenant," Hensley said finally, voice quieter, almost in awe, "do you realize what your call sign represents?" Cole's eyes met his. "Sir, I earned it the only way a SEAL can through action. I didn't pick it. It picked me. That's all you need to know." Hensley exhaled again, the weight of respect settling over him like a cloak. He had joked earlier, laughed off the name, dismissed it as dramatics. Now he understood. Reaper Zero was not a call sign to mock. It was a testament to the impossible made possible. He leaned forward, resting his hands on the desk. "I've seen many things in my career, Lieutenant. Battles, heroes, men who rise above their fears. But you've redefined the standards of what it means to be a SEAL. And I should have known better." Cole didn't answer. He never did. But Hensley could see it, the quiet confidence, the burden of responsibility carried with a calm that few could match. It wasn't arrogance. It wasn't bravado. It was mastery born from necessity. The Admiral finally stood, extending his hand. "Lieutenant Evan Cole, Reaper Zero, I salute you." Cole paused and nodded and shook the Admiral's hand. No words, no flourish, no praise accepted. Just a simple nod, the acknowledgement of mutual respect between men who understood the weight of life, death, and duty. Hensley sat back down silent. The Admiral who had commanded fleets, faced enemy fire, and witnessed horrors that would haunt any mortal man had been humbled. By a single SEAL, alone. And in that moment, Hensley knew something else. The story of Reaper Zero of Kandahar, of impossible courage, was only beginning to ripple outward. It would grow, quietly, methodically, among those who understood, and eventually reach him in ways that would demand recognition, trust, and reliance on a man who was now legend. Outside, the base stirred to life. New recruits trained under the harsh morning sun, unaware of the silent operator who had changed the history of their command. Evan Cole moved among them like a ghost present, yet invisible. The legend of Reaper Zero grew, unspoken, unstoppable. Hensley watched him from the office window, the weight of his prior joke settling fully now. He should never have laughed. And deep down, he knew he would never forget this lesson. The name, the man, the myth Reaper Zero was more than a title. It was a warning, a testament, and now, for the Admiral, a source of profound respect. Because even decades in the Navy, even battles won and lost, could not prepare a man for what he had just witnessed. A ghost had walked through fire, and the world, even the Admiral, could only watch in awe. The hallway outside Admiral Hensley's office was quiet, the kind of silence only a military installation in the early morning could hold. Fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows along the polished floors, reflecting off polished brass plaques and the muted colors of the base's insignias. Evan Cole walked steadily, his boots clicking softly against the floor. The sound seemed louder than usual in the stillness, like every step carried the weight of his past. He had been called to meet the Admiral privately, an unusual request, but he didn't question it. After Kandahar, after the briefing, after the classified footage, nothing about this situation felt normal. The door to the Admiral's office opened before him. Hensley gestured for him to enter, his expression unreadable. He didn't smile. He didn't joke. He just motioned for Cole to sit. "Lieutenant," Hensley began, leaning against the edge of his desk, hands folded, "I've seen a lot in my career. Wars, missions, men who pushed themselves beyond reason. But what you did in Kandahar, that's something else entirely." Cole remained silent, calm, as always. He didn't nod. He didn't shift. His eyes, gray and steady, met the Admiral's unflinching. "I've watched the footage more than once," Hensley continued, "and I keep asking myself how a single man can do what you did. No support, no air cover, 2 Marines at risk, and yet you walked through it, like—" He paused, searching for words. "Like a force of nature." Cole's jaw tightened slightly. "Sir, I did what I had to. It wasn't about heroics. It was about getting them home." The Admiral nodded slowly, leaning back into his chair. "I get that. And yet, the precision, the control, the calm under fire, it's more than just duty. You've set a standard no one else could touch." Cole exhaled softly, his fingers resting on the strap of his rifle beside him. "Sir, standards are for those who survive the mission. The rest don't matter. I did what was necessary. That's all." Hensley studied him. He had commanded men for decades, but the quiet authority radiating from this SEAL was unlike anything he had seen. There was no ego, no need for approval. Just competence and an unspoken understanding of the cost of failure. "I need you to understand something," the Admiral said, his voice dropping to a whisper, almost confessional. "I joked about your call sign earlier, in the briefing room. I laughed. I didn't know. I had no idea." Cole's eyes didn't change. "Sir, the call sign. It's not for show. I earned it. You can respect it or ignore it. I don't care either way." Hensley rubbed his temples, feeling the weight of his earlier misjudgment. "It's not just respect, Lieutenant. It's fear. It's awe. The footage. The mission. You didn't just survive. You dominated. You changed everything we thought we knew about handling impossible situations." Cole's expression softened very slightly, almost imperceptibly. "Sir, war is chaos. You take what you can control and move forward. That's all anyone can do." The Admiral shook his head, leaning forward, resting his hands on his desk. Do you realize what your call sign represents to people like me? To the men you serve with? It's not just a name, it's a promise. A warning. A standard? Cole looked down briefly, adjusting the strap of his tactical vest. I know, sir. I don't talk about it. It's not meant for recognition. It's history, for those who understand it. History? Hensley repeated, incredulous. Lieutenant, you've made history. And you think that doesn't matter? Cole shrugged. Not for me. I've done my duty. Others will decide if it matters. There was silence for a moment, thick with unspoken tension. The Admiral's eyes softened, but there was still an edge and awe mingled with the realization that he was face to face with a man few could ever truly comprehend. You're unshakable, Hensley said quietly. Even after everything. Even after seeing death and chaos that would break most men. You walk out calm, precise, untouched. How do you do it? Cole's voice was calm, almost rehearsed, but with an undercurrent of experience. Sir, it's not about being untouched. It's about knowing what matters. And in that moment, it was those Marines. Nothing else. Nothing personal. Nothing for glory. The Admiral leaned back, breathing slowly. He had faced impossible situations, yes, but he had never seen someone carry themselves with such a balance of precision and restraint. He realized now why the SEALs in the briefing had been so hesitant, so respectful in their silence. They weren't intimidated by him. They recognized something in him that even they could not achieve. And yet, Hensley said softly, almost to himself, you're still human. Cole looked at him. Sir, you walked through fire. You carried men. You survived when no one else could. But you're still human. You feel the weight, you understand the cost, and you don't let it control you. That is remarkable. Cole exhaled again, the faintest hint of weariness passing over his features. Sir, the weight never leaves you. It just becomes manageable. That's all. The Admiral shook his head slowly, leaning back, hands clasped behind his head. I've seen a lot in my life. Wars, conflicts, impossible missions. And yet, Lieutenant Cole, I think I understand for the first time what it truly means to earn respect in this service. Not medals, not rank, not recognition, but through sheer competence, discipline, and humanity under fire. You've done that? Cole nodded once. Thank you, sir. That means enough. The Admiral's gaze softened, but his mind was already racing ahead. He had witnessed the truth about Reaper Zero, and now he knew the implications. He couldn't allow this kind of skill and precision to remain underutilized. He would need this man, not just for admiration, but for missions that demanded impossible courage and impeccable execution. You should know, Hensley continued, leaning forward, there will be more challenges ahead, ones that only someone like you could handle. And when the time comes, I'll need you to lead. Cole's eyes narrowed slightly, the faintest spark of focus igniting. Understood, sir. The room fell into silence. Both men understood each other perfectly, though very little was said. The unspoken trust, respect, and recognition flowed between them, an acknowledgement of the past, present, and the missions that lay ahead. Hensley finally spoke again, softer this time. I underestimated you, Lieutenant. I won't make that mistake again. Cole stood, adjusting his gear. Sir, I'm not here to impress. I'm here to do my job. That's all anyone should ever do. The Admiral nodded, still seated, eyes following Cole as he walked toward the door. The young SEAL's posture, calm demeanor, and quiet authority left an impression stronger than any medal or commendation ever could. When the door closed behind him, Hensley exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of what he had witnessed. This man Reaper Zero is not just a soldier. He's a legend. And I am lucky to have seen it firsthand. Outside, the morning sun spilled across the base, illuminating the faces of recruits and seasoned operators alike. Somewhere in the distance, Cole's team moved in formation, preparing for the day's training. They didn't speak of Kandahar. They didn't need to. The legend of Reaper Zero had been sealed in silence, in respect, and in the quiet acknowledgement between a man who had earned his call sign and the Admiral who finally understood its weight. And for the first time in a long while, Hensley felt the true gravity of command, not in orders or medals, but in the quiet courage of a single man who carried impossible responsibility and survived. The quiet conversation was over, but its echoes would resonate for years to come. The rain hammered against the windows of Naval Special Warfare Command, drumming a rhythm that matched the tension in Admiral Hensley's chest. The storm had rolled in over the California coast like a warning, dark clouds stretching endlessly across the horizon. Hensley stared at the secure tablet on his desk, the grainy image of Kandahar still lingering in his mind. He had watched Reaper Zero move through smoke and fire, as if the chaos bent to his will. The name echoed again, now heavier than ever. Evan Cole. The secure line buzzed. Hensley answered immediately. Admiral Hensley. Sir? Came a voice clipped and urgent. We have a critical situation. CI operatives in northern Syria Aleppo province are confirmed alive, but trapped inside a fortified compound. We have limited intel on enemy strength. Extraction window is 36 hours. Command wants this done quietly, with no media coverage and no trace. Hensley's eyes narrowed. He had faced impossible situations before, but the stakes in this mission were unprecedented. Who is the point man? A pause, then the voice said, That's your call, Admiral. The line went dead. Hensley leaned back in his chair, feeling the storm outside mirror the storm rising in his chest. He knew immediately who would be capable of this, the man whose call sign had been a joke to him just weeks before. Reaper Zero. He tapped a code into the secure terminal and personally typed the orders. By the time Evan Cole read the alert on his encrypted comms, he was already at the training range, the smell of gunpowder clinging to his uniform. The message was brief. Report to command immediately. Priority red. Cole didn't hesitate. He wiped rain from his face, checked his gear, and moved with deliberate precision toward the transport waiting outside. When he arrived at the operations center, Hensley was already there, leaning over the holographic table, satellite imagery flickering across the surface. He didn't greet Cole with a smile or a handshake. There was no time for that now. Lieutenant, Hensley said quietly. This is serious. Cole nodded, his gray eyes fixed on the screens. How serious? CIA operatives trapped inside a heavily fortified compound, Hensley said. Enemy presence is significant 40 armed militants, possibly mercenaries. Air support is restricted. Time window is 36 hours. If we miss it, the hostages are gone. Or worse. Cole studied the images, tracing walls, courtyards, and access points. Exfil wrote, Limited. Extraction must be stealth. You will lead the team. Handpick your personnel. We can provide intel and drones, but it's your call. You know what you're doing. Cole's face didn't change. He didn't smile or nod excessively. Understood, sir. Hensley paused. Do you realize what this means? You're the only one who can do this cleanly. One mistake, we lose them. Cole's jaw tightened. I know the stakes. The Admiral exhaled slowly. I've watched Kandahar footage more times than I can count. That mission, what you did there, it was impossible. And yet, I'm sending you back into another impossible scenario. Alone, almost. With only your team. Do you, Do you accept? Cole didn't flinch. He didn't hesitate. Sir, I accept. Hensley studied him, feeling both awe and fear. The calm, measured confidence of Evan Cole was unnerving. He remembered laughing at the call sign in the briefing, and now he understood its weight. This man isn't just capable. He's unstoppable. Cole moved to select his team. 4 men joined him, trusted operators he had worked with before. Mason, the demolitions expert, silent and precise. Hughes, the scout and marksman, eyes always scanning. Rafik, the medic, calm under pressure. And Keller, the drone and communications specialist, whose fingers danced over keyboards as easily as Cole moved through smoke and fire. Each man fell into position without a word, knowing instinctively what was expected. The team checked weapons, verified comms, and moved with unspoken synchronicity. Cole's eyes flicked over each man, ensuring every magazine, every charge, every sight was perfect. A single misstep could cost lives. A single miscalculation could doom the mission. Yet there was no hesitation, no fear. Only focus. Outside, the storm raged. Rain soaked the tarmac and reflected the lights of the helicopters waiting for them. Cole's boots splashed through puddles as he approached the aircraft. The team boarded silently, the low hum of rotors vibrating through the hull. Cole secured his harness, checked his rifle one last time, and settled in as the aircraft lifted off, climbing into the stormy sky. The flight was tense, each man aware of the stakes. Cole studied the satellite images again, memorizing positions, escape routes, and possible choke points. He calculated timing, distances, and angles as the helicopter cut through low clouds. Every breath, every heartbeat was methodical, precise. Hensley, monitoring remotely, felt a rare tension coil in his chest. He had seen many operators handle impossible missions, but nothing had prepared him for the weight of trusting a single man with this level of responsibility. And yet, he had no doubt. Cole would succeed where others might fail. The helicopter approached the drop point. Rain pelted the aircraft, reducing visibility to mere meters. Cole gave the nod. Mason and Hughes prepared demolition packs. Rafik checked medical kits. Keller set up drone feeds to provide surveillance once they touched down. The storm masked their approach, but it also increased risk. A slip, a miscalculation, and the entire mission could collapse before it began. Cole's mind went through the plan one last time. Entry, neutralization, hostage recovery, extraction. Minimal contact, maximum efficiency. Every action had to be precise. Every decision mattered. And yet, beneath the calm exterior, a familiar adrenaline surged. The same clarity he had felt in Kandahar. The same focus that had earned him the name Reaper Zero. As the helicopter descended toward the drop zone, lightning illuminated the compound ahead. It stood stark and foreboding, a fortress of stone and metal, guarded and ready. Cole's eyes narrowed. The storm, the shadows, the chaos, it all became a tool. He could feel the mission unfolding in his mind, like a map etched into his consciousness. Team, he said quietly, voice carrying over comms. We move fast, we move precise. No hesitation. Check your gear one last time. On my mark. The aircraft shuddered from the wind, but Cole's gaze never wavered. This was the moment where training, skill, and experience collided. The storm raged, but inside Cole there was a calm certainty, a focus sharpened by years of impossible missions. The team readied themselves. Weapons loaded, explosives packed, drones armed and ready. Cole's hand hovered over the door release. Every eye was on him, trusting his judgment, waiting for his signal. He exhaled. 1 heartbeat, 2, then he moved. The door opened. The storm and the night embraced them. Cole led the team forward, stepping into the darkness with absolute confidence. Every step calculated, every breath controlled, every shadow accounted for. As they vanished into the night toward the fortress, Hensley watched the live feeds, gripping the edge of his console. For the first time in decades, he felt powerless, not because he lacked ability, but because he could not walk that storm, could not make those impossible decisions. He could only watch and trust. And for that, there was only one man he could rely on: Reaper Zero. The storm had softened, though the night remained thick with clouds and shadows. Evan Cole led his team through the jagged terrain toward the fortified compound, every movement calculated. Rain had turned the ground into mud, but each step was precise, silent. The team followed without question, their trust in him absolute, a bond forged in previous missions that required more than courage. It demanded perfection. Cole's eyes scanned the fortress. Satellite imagery had given him the layout, but real life was never as neat as a map. The compound was surrounded by high walls, reinforced with metal sheeting, guard towers at each corner, and narrow choke points that could become death traps. The faint glow of lights inside hinted at enemy activity, and the occasional movement suggested vigilance. But the positions weren't rigid. This was human chaos, unpredictable and dangerous. He crouched low in the mud, signaling to Mason and Hughes. Mason moved forward to the side, ready to plant a silent charge, while Hughes adjusted his scope, observing patterns in the guards' movements. Cole's own rifle was already at the ready, equipped with a suppressor and thermal sights. 2 on the north wall. 1 patrol coming south, Hughes whispered through combs. Cole nodded subtly. Timing is everything. Rafik, stay with me on extraction planning. Keller, drone in position. We move on my mark. The men froze, waiting, blending into the shadows. Each breath was measured. The storm had brought rain, yes, but it also masked their approach. Thunder rolled in the distance, a natural cover for what they were about to do. Cole signaled Mason, and the demolitions expert crept forward, placing charges along a weak section of the wall. The charge was silent, a small device with just enough power to create an entry without alerting the entire compound. The seals moved like shadows, invisible and precise. Every movement, every sound had a purpose. There was no hesitation, no extraneous motion. A flash of lightning illuminated the wall, and Cole froze, sensing a patrol guard shift in the light. His hand signaled, and the team flattened into the mud. The guard passed, oblivious to the lethal precision, moving beneath the storm's cover. Mason completed the charge, backing away silently. Cole checked the timing on his watch. 3, 2, 1. The small detonation punctured the night softly, a controlled breach that allowed them entry. Smoke and a faint acrid scent filled the air, but the team moved seamlessly through the opening. Inside, the compound was a maze of corridors, reinforced doors and guards. Cole led, clearing each hallway with precise suppression fire when necessary, neutralizing threats silently where possible. Every target was assessed quickly kill or incapacitate, nothing more. The SEALs flowed behind him, in perfect synchronization, each aware of the stakes. One wrong move could cost the hostages their lives, or worse, the team. They reached a reinforced door at the center of the compound, the likely location of the hostages. Cole paused, listening. Muffled voices carried through the metal and concrete. He recognized 2 distinct patterns, voices of men restrained but alive. He counted guards, checking for rotations. Timing had to be perfect. Charge in 3, he whispered. The team spread out, weapons ready. Mason set a breaching charge, small and precise, enough to remove the lock without alerting the entire compound. The door exploded inward silently, and Cole led the way. Inside, the two CIA operatives were bound and unconscious on the floor, watched by 3 armed guards. Cole's rifle barked twice. 2 guards dropped silently, and the third went down as Hugh's suppressed round found its mark. Rafik moved immediately, checking the operatives' vitals. "They're stable. Minimal trauma." "We move," Cole nodded. "Keller, feed drone intel." "Any external movement?" "None," came the calm voice over comms. "Extraction point is clear for now, but window is tight. Enemy reinforcements possible in 10 minutes." The team secured the operatives, moving them swiftly toward the extraction route. Every step was choreographed, every glance toward potential threats calculated. Cole's mind raced, anticipating patrols, rotations, and possible ambushes. The enemy could overwhelm them in seconds if they made a misstep. As they moved through a narrow corridor, a sudden metallic clatter echoed. An unguarded door swung open. Cole froze, signaling the team to halt. 2 insurgents emerged, weapons raised. Without hesitation, Cole moved. He fired with precision, taking both down before they could react. The operatives stirred, but were safe. "Keep moving," he whispered. Almost there. The storm outside had moved, leaving a muted drizzle and shadows that could hide movements, but also reveal them. They navigated the last corridors with methodical calm, every seal aware of timing and distance. Cole's leadership was evident. He was the nerve, the eyes, and the final decision-maker. As they approached the extraction point, alarms suddenly blared. A delayed sensor had triggered. Light flickered along the compound walls. Cole's heart rate increased, not with fear, but with pure focus. Time was now critical. Patrols converging. "Get the operatives in the center hallway," he ordered. The team moved with fluid precision. Mason laid down smoke grenades, while Hughes provided cover. Rafik guided the hostages, calming them while keeping them low. Keller's drone overhead provided real-time intel, highlighting movement in corridors. Cole took a deep breath, scanning the exit. 1 guard tower had become active. 2 insurgents moved toward the perimeter. He calculated angles and distances. In one swift motion, he fired, taking both down before they could raise an alarm. "Go!" he shouted. The team sprinted through the compound's open courtyard, smoke and shadows masking their movements. Gunfire erupted behind them, but the SEALs moved like ghosts, weaving through mud and debris. The extraction point came into view. A waiting helicopter, rotors spinning violently in the night wind. Cole's team secured the hostages and moved toward the ramp. One last patrol appeared, blocking their path. Cole's mind worked instantly. Angles, trajectories, timing. He fired, dropping the first, and with a precise leap, avoided the second, landing near the helicopter. The ramp lifted. Mason and Hughes jumped aboard, followed by Rafik with the operatives. Cole was last. A final glance at the compound, a mess of smoke, chaos, and the enemy frozen in disbelief at the SEAL's precision. Then he leapt aboard. The ramp closed behind him. The helicopter ascended, slicing through clouds and rain. Cole exhaled, the adrenaline still coursing but controlled. Every operative was accounted for, every threat neutralized. The impossible had been executed with precision and calm, as it always had been for Reaper Zero. From the cockpit, Hensley watched the live feed, barely breathing. "They did it," he whispered. Reaper Zero did it again. Cole sat quietly in the helicopter, surveying the dark terrain below. The storm had passed. The mission had succeeded. And yet, in his mind, every detail, every second of risk, every shadowed threat lingered. This was his world: danger, precision, and the calm control that made him a legend. He glanced at his team, each man alive, each man competent, each man trusting him implicitly. And somewhere, deep in the back of his mind, he knew more impossible nights were coming. But he would face them, as he always had, alone if necessary, precise and calm. The man the world had come to fear and respect, Reaper Zero. The helicopter disappeared into the clouds, carrying them all to safety, leaving only the echoes of a storm. A fortress conquered, and a legend reaffirmed. The rain had finally stopped, leaving a damp, misty calm over the naval base. Admiral Hensley sat alone in his office, the glow from his secure console reflecting faintly in the darkened room. Outside, the night was quiet, almost serene after the storm, yet inside, Hensley's mind raced. He had just watched the live feed of the northern Syria extraction, and the realization of what had occurred left him both awed and unsettled. The hostages were safe. The SEALs had completed an impossible mission. And at the center of it all, guiding the team, moving like a shadow through chaos, was Evan Cole Reaper Zero. The man who had once been the subject of a casual joke in a briefing room had now executed what seemed like an impossibility: stealth, precision, and calm under fire that would have broken ordinary men. Hensley leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. His career had been filled with extraordinary operators, missions that tested limits, and wars that demanded sacrifice. But he had never encountered someone like Cole. He had watched the man in Kandahar, seen him on the training ranges, understood his reputation, but tonight, the reality had crystallized. Reaper Zero was not a myth. He was a force of nature. The door opened quietly behind him. Cole stepped in, mud still clinging to his boots, rifle slung low, eyes steady as ever. He did not need to announce his presence. The Admiral had already sensed it. "Sir," Cole said simply. Hensley turned, meeting his gaze. "Lieutenant." He gestured to a chair. "Sit." Cole remained standing. "I didn't come for thanks, sir. I know my job." Hensley exhaled, a long, measured breath. "I know. That's what makes you extraordinary." He paused, trying to find words adequate to the moment. "I've commanded men for decades, Lieutenant. I've seen courage, brilliance, even heroism. But what you've done, it transcends all of that. Kandahar, Syria. Every mission you faced, it's beyond comprehension for most. I can only observe and respect." Cole finally took a seat, shoulders squared, his calm demeanor a stark contrast to the tension Hensley felt. "Sir, I don't expect recognition. I do what must be done, and the team follows. That's all. That's the mission." Hensley leaned forward, elbows on the desk. "Do you realize the legend you've become? Even among the SEALs, your call sign carries weight like few others. Command, intelligence, even the CIA, your reputation precedes you." Cole's eyes flicked down briefly. "Sir, it's a name. Nothing more. I earned it by doing my duty. Nothing else." Hensley shook his head slowly, frustration mingling with awe. "It's more than a name. Reaper Zero isn't just who you are, it's what you represent. Precision, calm, discipline, the ability to walk through fire while others flinch. That is a standard that no one else can reach. You've redefined it." Cole studied the Admiral's face carefully. "Sir, I never sought to redefine anything. I just follow the plan, execute, and survive. The rest, it's up to others to interpret." Hensley leaned back, the weight of the man in front of him pressing down in an unspoken way. He had joked about this call sign once, laughed at what he thought was bravado. Now, the joke seemed obscene in hindsight. There was no exaggeration in the legend of Reaper Zero, only truth. And the truth was daunting. He exhaled again, long and steady, letting the silence fill the room. "I underestimated you, Lieutenant," he said quietly. "Not just your skill, but your presence. The way you carry the mission, your team, the lives of others. It's unmatched. I won't make that mistake again." Cole nodded, unflinching, his calm assurance unbroken. "Sir, I've never wanted to impress. Only to succeed. That's all anyone can do." For a long moment, neither spoke. Hensley could feel the enormity of what had just occurred, the impossible extraction, the precision, the calm under unimaginable pressure. And he realized something else. For all his years of experience, he could never replicate this. He could command fleets, issue orders, even face death with courage. But the level of focus, control, and instinct that Cole displayed was in a category beyond ordinary comprehension. "You know," Hensley said finally, voice low, "there's a kind of silence that comes after a mission like this. A weight. Most men carry it for years. Some break under it. You move through it as if it were nothing." Cole's eyes met his. "Sir, it's never nothing. It's just managed. You compartmentalize. You focus on what matters most. That's the only way to survive and to succeed." Hensley leaned back, considering this. He understood the words, but he could not truly grasp the calm efficiency that had allowed Reaper Zero to conquer what should have been impossible. There was humility in the statement, yes, but also a quiet dominance that unsettled him. The kind of dominance that did not need recognition, did not seek approval, and did not tolerate failure. "Evan," Hensley said finally, "there are few men in history who can inspire awe with mere presence. You are one of them. And yet you do not seek it. You never have. You simply are. And that terrifies and humbles everyone who watches you, including me." Cole inclined his head slightly, acknowledging the respect, but offering no ego in return. "Sir, it's not about terror. It's about responsibility. Every life matters. Every mission matters. The rest is noise." The Admiral exhaled, sitting back in his chair. He had learned a hard lesson about perception, about reputation, and about the quiet power that comes not from words or medals, but from mastery of skill and discipline. This man, this SEAL, had walked through fire alone and returned with lives intact, mission accomplished, and yet remained untouchable by ego. Outside, the night was silent. The storm had passed completely, leaving mist over the base. But inside, Hensley felt the weight of what had transpired. He had witnessed the impossible, and he had been reminded, in the most profound way, that true legends do not seek recognition. They earn it through action, calm precision, and mastery under pressure. Cole stood to leave, as calm and composed as he had been throughout his entire career. "Sir," he said simply, "I should get back to the team. We have debriefs and prep for the next mission." Hensley nodded. "Yes, but know this, you've changed the way I view this command. The way I view every mission. You've set a new standard. Reaper Zero is no longer a call sign. It's a legend." Cole gave a faint nod and exited, leaving the Admiral alone. Hensley sat in silence, staring at the rain-soaked darkness outside the window. He had joked, he had doubted, he had laughed, and now he understood. Reaper Zero was beyond myth, beyond fear, beyond legend. The reality of Evan Cole's skill and composure had left its mark on him. For hours, Hensley remained at his desk, the quiet punctuated only by the occasional hum of equipment. He thought of the lives saved, the impossible extraction, and the calm, precise actions that had made it all possible. The weight of command, the responsibility of oversight, had never felt so real. He understood the truth now. Some men were beyond comprehension, and some legends walked among the living. Outside, the base slept. Inside, Admiral Hensley finally allowed himself to admit it. He had never seen anything like Reaper Zero, and he might never see it again. He did not speak the name aloud, yet it resonated in his mind. A symbol of discipline, courage, and calm mastery. A reminder that legends were real. And somewhere in the night, Evan Cole prepared silently for the next mission, unaware of the full awe he had inspired. But Hensley, sitting alone in the dim glow of his office, knew. Reaper Zero had walked through fire once more, and the world, even at its highest command, could only watch in reverent silence.